The Wedding Favor, Part 10. The ride to Ella's work is mostly spent in silence. When Ella asks about the specs of his car, it turns out Damien has no idea. He didn't choose this car. His cousin gave it to Damien when he bought a new one. The silence makes her leg jiggle with nerves as it leaves her mind free to worry. When they arrive at her work, is she supposed to kiss him goodbye? Is saying thank you enough? How is she going to get back to her own car? Is Damien's sweater as soft as it looks? It was hidden underneath his jacket earlier, but now that he has unzipped it in the car, it looks incredibly soft. She's actually anticipating getting to run her hands over it when they kiss goodbye. They reach Ella's work in no time, without her giving him directions. That's weird, right? Ella turns to Damien to ask him about it, but he answers before she can. Uncle gave me your info. I know where you live, where you work, your phone number, email, the whole package. That's vaguely stalkerish. Do you know my social security number too? Not off the top of my head, but I can look it up if you need it. Damien smirks at her quickly before getting out of the car. Ella hastily gets out of the car too, not ready to let this topic go. Is this a stalky mob thing? Did you use your uncle's resources to find out everything about me? Damien shrugs. It's not just a mob thing, but yes. Uncle kept an eye on you for a while after you changed his tire. Ella freezes. A year ago, she changed Don Giovanni's tire when she spotted him at the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. She thought he was a lonely old guy in need of help, so she decided to be kind and help. Turned out he wasn't alone, but his burly nephew kept silent while Ella worked. Don was nice enough, at least until Ella asked him to pop the trunk to get to his spare tire. He kept her near the front of the car while the other guy fetched the tire from the trunk. She heard muffled screaming when he opened the trunk, and Dawn put a hand on her shoulder. She still remembers his warning. You are a kind girl. It would be a shame if something had to happen to you, because you interfered in things that didn't concern you. Ella had simply nodded and finished as quickly as she could. The mobster promised her a favor if she ever needed one, as long as she kept her silence. Ella thought that was that, but apparently, the man had her watched. How long did they watch her? What did they see? Are they still watching her? The paranoia makes Ella's skin crawl, and she freezes in her tracks until Damien quirks his head at her. Everything all right? Ella stares at him for a moment. Did he keep an eye on her too? Does she even want to know? Ella shakes her head. Yeah, I just need to get to work. Thanks for driving me. She moves in to do something. Kiss him? Hug him? She settles on awkwardly patting his shoulder. Ella mentally curses herself. This was her shot to touch the sweater. See you later? Damien smirks at her before glancing at the plain concrete building in front of them. I'm going to walk you in. I've never been inside a garage before. Before Ella can protest because who does he think he is, Damien's already off towards the service entrance. Ella rushes after him before he triggers the alarms on the door or something. You can't just come into my workplace without asking first. Damien starts glaring at the security box on the wall instead of looking at her. Can you open the door so I can come in, please? Ella rolls her eyes at him and pushes him out of the way, resulting in him calling her rude. He goes back to glaring at the security system while Ella unlocks the 3 different locks and swipes her card through the scanner. What's that thing ever done to you? I'm about 80% certain that box isn't real. Ella motions at the doorknob, still holding her key card. I'm pretty sure it is. Damien glares at the doorknob too. All right then, 70% certainty. At least Ella now knows it's not just her that's subject to his glares. It actually makes her feel better. Damien follows her inside, looking around the dingy hall with interest. Ella tries to keep the workshop clean, but there's only so much you can do when you work with giant machines that run on oil and gasoline. Damien looks completely out of place in his dark fitted jeans and cream sweater, especially while standing right next to an oil spill nobody cleaned up yesterday. Ella sighs and mentally notes to check who was on close yesterday. Mr. Merchant, her boss, will want to know. Ella gives Damien a quick tour of the place, Damien humming in all the right places to show interest. She ends the tour at her changing room. She's the only woman in this place, so it's hers by default. The men have to share. She claps her hands and rocks on her heels. Well, this is it, my workplace. Damien frowns at her. Why are you here all alone? Ella shrugs. The boss trusts me. Besides, Arthur will be here in half an hour, so I won't be alone for long. Damien makes no move to leave. I'd feel better if you weren't here when Arthur arrived. He'll suspect we took advantage of the place while we were alone. A slow smirk curls up Damien's lips. Is that an offer? Ella blushes and pushes at his chest. It's more like a gentle press against his pecs for all that it moves him. His sweater is the softest thing she ever touched, and she almost leaves her hand where it is. Don't joke about things like that. Arthur is one of those guys who'll keep harping about it for ages. Just, she waves at the other side of the hall. Go wait over there while I change. Damien lingers for a moment, his eyes running over her top to bottom before he hums and goes where Ella pointed him. Ella stares after him for a heartbeat. Was he undressing her with his eyes? Is that what that look was? She does feel awfully naked in her sports gear suddenly. She's not sure if she should feel flattered or upset. There's no time to think it over, though. It takes Ella less than 10 minutes to get ready for work, but by the time she gets back out, Damien is in the middle of an animated conversation with Arthur. Arthur is just finished telling a joke when Ella exits her changing room, and Damien laughs loudly. The heartwarming sound makes Ella stop in her tracks. Damien looks so carefree and happy right now. A pit forms in her stomach. How is Damien so charming to everyone that isn't her? Where's the charged staring? The awkwardness? The incessant glaring? Is all of that because she's a woman? Ella shakes off that thought. He was this charming with her mother as well. It's just her. What did she do? Damien responds to Arthur with a joke of his own, too softly for Ella to hear, and Arthur laughs along with him. While Damien is grinning at her colleague, he turns his head slightly to look her in the eyes. Ella's heart skips a beat, and then he raises an expectant eyebrow. Ella flushes in embarrassment. How can he put that much judgment into a stupid quirk of one muscle? She hurries to his side, waving a half-hearted greeting at Arthur. I didn't expect you for a while yet. I haven't even started inventory yet. Arthur shrugs with his usual carefree attitude. I thought you were going to be alone again this morning, so I figured I'd keep you company for once. He grins widely at her. Damien stiffens next to her, and Ella doesn't need to look at him to know his eyes are narrowed. She glances up anyway, just to make sure it's not at her, because she is absolutely certain she didn't do anything to warrant it this time. He's staring at Arthur, but the glare is gone before Ella gets a good look at it. Instead, Damien looks down at her and pulls her close. His eyes soften, and Ella's mind gets lost in his dark eyes. He softly kisses her forehead, lips lingering for a moment longer than necessary. It warms Ella from the inside out. I'll let you get started, love. I'll pick you up at 3. Ella nods, flustered by the gentle smile he's pointing her way. Damien kisses the top of her head and turns away. He squeezes Arthur's shoulder as he passes, in an overtly friendly way. And Arthur, you're a nice guy, but stop asking my girl out all the time, okay? Okay. He smirks, pats his shoulder once, and walks off. Ella is distracted by staring at his well-clad behind, but then her mind catches up to what he said to Arthur, and she's confused. Did she tell Damien about Arthur's running gag of asking her out every Friday? Did Arthur tell him about it? When Ella turns to ask Arthur about it, she has to take a step back in surprise. His face is twisted up into a frown of disgust, his mouth open to say something but no words coming out quite yet. It makes no sense. Arthur is her happy-go-lucky work buddy. They always joke around and have fun when they're at the shop. He never gets angry, except apparently he does, because now he's looking at her as if she's betrayed him deeply. Are you okay? Arthur scoffs at her question. Okay. Of course I'm not okay. Here I was, thinking you were just playing hard to get to prolong the fun of the hunt or something, but then you bring your boyfriend to work so you can get him to intimidate me? You could have just told me you had a boyfriend instead of stringing me along. There was no need to go for the jugular. Ella is speechless for a moment, staring at a seething Arthur with wide eyes. Hard to get? When was I playing? Arthur doesn't let her finish. Oh, please. Don't pretend you don't know. I kept asking you out, and you kept laughing and saying no, each excuse more outlandish than the next. Yeah, that was the joking part. Wasn't it? Arthur doesn't give her the chance to interrupt him. You liked my attention until you apparently found a better source for it. You totally used me as fuel for your selfish, narcissistic ego. Arthur's accusations shake Ella's foundations. He's hurt. And it's because of Ella. She didn't mean to hurt her friend. She didn't really like the constant asking out, but she let it slide as a stupid joke on his part. She had hoped it was just a joke. Her last excuse was that she had a flight booked to Mars that evening. How was that stringing him along? But we were never serious about it? Arthur shakes his head. Just stop, Ella. I'm not going to be your source of adoration anymore. Don't come crying to me when your boy toy has enough of your antics. Arthur gives her another disgusted look and then turns around to his own workstation, leaving a confused and hurt Ella behind.